Okay, today I'm going to talk about trying to create this vernier scale on our protractor, right? Most likely your device is going to involve some kind of protractor or maybe a couple of them, and I need to figure out how to construct this vernier scale here on a protractor. We already know how to do it on a vernier caliper, right? A simple version we did on a vernier caliper, but this is this is slightly different when you're trying to divide degrees into minutes. Okay, so when you look closely at this image, and we've looked at this on the computer before, we see that, and we really only need to do half of this. This particular vernier scale goes 60 minutes in each direction, right? But we really just need to go in one direction from 0. And if you look from 0 to 60 minutes on the main scale is 23 minutes, I'm sorry, 23 degrees divided up into 12 equal parts. 23 degrees divided up into 12 equal parts, right? And that will give you each of those vernier scale marks on that vernier. Okay, so I've done the job here a couple different ways, and I'm going to show you that, or I'll show you the first one I did. Here's my vernier scale on this piece of paper, and I'm going to transfer this onto my big piece of cardboard that'll be on the outside. Eventually, this is going to be the vernier piece on the outside using this piece of leftover cardboard from when I cut out my initial protractor. Right? We saw how I laid out the protractor in another video, right? And so right in here, this is the beginnings of my vernier scale right here. The way I did this was to take a little piece of paper, which now all of a sudden has disappeared. Oh, I know. First I'll tell you about this one. I'm sorry. So this one here, I laid down this piece of paper on the outside of the main scale, on the outside of my main scale, like this, and very carefully traced the curve, the arc of the protractor onto the piece of paper, right? So now I've got that arc on there. It's a large diameter arc, so it looks, you know, close to a straight line, but not quite. Then, very carefully, I went along and looked at this thing here and decided where each of the vernier scale marks would fall in relation to the main scale. So if I look really carefully, the middle here, not surprisingly, if we're dividing up 23 minutes into equal parts, I start at the halfway mark. That's 11.5 degrees on the main scale. I found 11.5 degrees here on the main scale, right here, and mark that onto this piece of paper to make the 30-minute mark of the vernier scale. And then pretty much all along the rest of it, I went and found the different degree marks and then marked off the corresponding fractions of a degree or minutes of the degree that went with it on here, basically just imitating what I found here. Okay, just imitated what I found here and drew it onto this piece of paper. Now I can take this piece of paper and put it here, and if I line it up carefully, I could just poke through it to make marks on there, or I could position it inside here real carefully and make marks like that, and so on, right? So that's one way to that's one way to make the vernier scale. The other way I came up with was to take a piece of paper. I took this piece of paper here and made it to span the 23 degrees on this main scale right here. Drew the line, the curve out here, carefully went from 0 to 23 degrees and cut my piece of paper to fit that size. And then I just have to take this and divide it. If I divide it in half, like that, I can lay that down here on my vernier scale thing. Say, oh look, there's a half of the distance, and mark that off right there. Then I folded it in half again and used to mark off the quarters. Right, quarter here, quarter, quarter, quarter. Now the tricky part is these last marks are not based on half of this mark. They're based on thirds of this mark. So what I tried to do was to very carefully fold my paper into thirds. And this is a part where it's not quite as easy. And I don't know if I've been successful. I try to get a width here that's a third of this thing. Now I can test this out if I really carefully go along here and place it here and say, okay, there's a third, and I mark that spot. Okay, there's a third right there, plus another third right there, plus another third, and it's not quite right. I need to make this distance a little smaller. I missed when I folded it, right? So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep messing with this until I get this as close as possible to the third of a degree, or the third of that space, the space in here, and then mark those thirds on this cardboard. There's a third. There's a third. And that looks pretty good. I think that's going to be a good size. So now I can take this piece of paper and use it as a guide to mark. Yeah, that looks pretty good right there. So now I've got, if I repeat this same thing, right here, I repeat it, I'll tilt a little bit here if the light hits it just right, I hope. So now I've got the marks there for so on your scale, if this is 0, the big things here are 15 minutes. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 60 minutes, right? I can go ahead and write that on here now. This is 15, 30, 45, and 60, right? And this would be my 0 mark right there. Okay? Can you see that, I hope? And then I've made these little intermediate marks using my little piece of paper to determine, by folding my paper into thirds, to figure out what's a third of this distance right here, right? And I do the same thing here, and here, and here, and then I'll have a vernier scale. And that seems to work as well. So you can use my methods if you want. If you can think up another method for doing this, absolutely go ahead and do that, as long as you ultimately end up with the proper marks on your on your main scale and on your vernier scale, right? Looks pretty good. Okay, there, good. Okay, so now I've got a vernier scale right there. Let's see if we can see it well. And this is 23 minutes on the main scale, divided up into these 12 equal parts. And so this would be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and so on. 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and so on. That's your, and of course we read a vernier scale, same way we did with the vernier caliper type scale, right? And that looks pretty good. Rotate that a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so that's how it should end up in the end. Now I have to worry about, I next have to figure out how to actually construct my device, but I've done a really good job of making sure I know where the center of my arc is, right here. Right, this is the center of the arc. So I'll probably have to trim off some of this to make it work right, and try to align my sight tube with this center of the arc on this big piece. Okay? All right, very good.